Okay, what characteristics of a negotiator or the negotiation context itself allows for an integrative negotiation? Now, in prior videos, we've explained what is an integrative negotiation and the best practices to follow to achieve or carry out an integrative negotiation. But it's also important to understand the various characteristics or components that need to come together in order for parties to have a potential integrative negotiation at hand. Okay, so that being said, to start with, the interests at stake. Okay, in an integrative negotiation, either the single interest at stake or the collective group of interests at stake will have generally one of the common interests, or it will be one of the following types of interests. It will either be a common interest, that is the interests, the parties want the same thing. They want to go the same direction with the interest at stake, right? Now, this is more common of compatible negotiations than integrative, but you may see that as an interest in a mix of interest within an overall integrative negotiation, right? And then there's the shared interest, and that's parties that want the same interest. The interest at stake is what they care about, and they want to go generally the same direction with it. It's just they may care about the interest, the value in the interest to a different degree. They may value the different aspects of the interest uniquely, right? That is, it's something unique to them that they value, or the extent to which they value it is different than the other side. And that is the heart of an integrative negotiation. The parties then have the ability to trade off within that interest or within that group of interests. Okay, and then there are joint objectives or goals in a negotiation, and those are typical of distributive negotiations, but are more often than not also mixed in with other interests in an integrative negotiation. And the parties simply have to trade off collectively with that interest, because the parties in a joint interest or objective, they care about the same interest, but oftentimes it's finite in nature, but they want to go different directions with it, right? Going one direction is counter to the other party's interest, and vice versa. Okay, so the parties, in order to grab value, they have to trade off among these different joint objectives or interests in order to create more value collectively. And like I said, in essence, you're going to need some shared interest in there as well that you can combine to have an overall integrative negotiation. Now, this is a very complicated process. Okay, I've told you before that negotiation is a communication exercise where parties swap information, and they use that information, they withhold information, right, to try to tactically grab some advantage in the negotiation to ultimately arrive at a win-win negotiation that is something within your zone of potential agreement, but also to grab more value within that zone of potential agreement than the other side. Both parties win, but you do better in the negotiation when you grab more value than the other party did. So with that being said, it requires a great deal of cooperation. Parties willing to work together. Okay, so to start with, it requires confidence on the behalf of each party that working together they can solve the problem or resolve the dispute at hand. Okay, so confidence in their problem-solving ability, that you can better your position. Because remember, parties only negotiate if they believe they can better their overall position, right? If they don't believe they can better their position by negotiating, they don't do it, right? They might argue, but they don't negotiate, okay? You have to be open to alternative perspectives. You have to be willing to listen to the other side and hear their explanation for how you can grab additional value in the negotiation. Okay, so an openness to various alternatives, things that may not be at first glance top of mind for you or in your best interest. Okay, so hearing alternative perspectives. You have to be motivated and committed to working together. Oftentimes, these negotiations are a back and forth that requires an interplay of emotions, logic, procedure, things like that. So you have to really be dedicated to the idea of working together and committed to the process, because it's not easy, right? Then there has to be some level of trust. That is, you are not being taken advantage of by the other side. The other side is not somehow using information against you surreptitiously or with bad intent. Okay, so there's a level of trust that what the other party is saying is true. Now, there may be information withheld. There will always be information withheld, but the other party is not taking advantage of you procedurally or is not lying. Once again, so there's trust there that both parties are working above board. And then once again, it is going to take an extensive amount of communication back and forth. Now, if all of these elements are present, you have what it takes to turn an otherwise distributive negotiation into an integrative negotiation where you can create more total value in the negotiation than otherwise existed.